The harsh October wind rattled the shutters of Olivia Whitaker's small cabin as she clutched the eviction notice in her trembling hands, the words blurring through her tears. 5 months pregnant and alone in Red Bluff, Montana Territory, 1876. She had nowhere to turn and no one to help her face the bitter winter that loomed ahead. "You have until sundown tomorrow," Benjamin Crawford, the banker, had told her coldly that morning, his eyes never meeting hers as he delivered the notice. "The property's been sold. New owner wants immediate possession." Olivia sank into the rocking chair her late husband James had crafted for her when they'd first learned of her pregnancy. Just 3 months ago, James had ridden out with a posse to track down cattle rustlers, only to return draped across his horse, a bullet through his heart. Now, with the mortgage payments missed and her meager savings depleted, Olivia faced the unthinkable homelessness in her condition. She placed a protective hand over her swollen belly. "We'll be all right, little one," she whispered, though she had no idea how to make good on that promise. At 23, with no family in the territory and winter approaching, her options were few. The thought of the town's charity house made her stomach turn, a place where desperate women often traded dignity for shelter. As morning light spilled through the cabin windows, Olivia packed what she could into 2 trunks. The furniture would have to stay. She had nowhere to take it, and no means to move it. She folded James's shirts carefully, holding them to her face to catch any lingering scent of him before placing them in the trunk. By noon, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Too early for Crawford, she thought with a flash of panic. Peering through the window, she saw a tall man dismounting from a chestnut stallion. Nathan Lawson. She recognized him immediately, though they'd never formally met. Everyone in Red Bluff knew of the Lawson Ranch, one of the largest operations in the territory. She'd seen him in town occasionally, quiet and reserved, unlike most of the boisterous cowboys who came to Red Bluff for supplies and entertainment. Olivia smoothed her apron and opened the door before he could knock. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, removing his hat to reveal thick dark hair. His face was weathered from years under the sun, but his blue eyes were kind. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Mr. Lawson," she replied, though she was puzzled by his presence. "What brings you this way?" Nathan shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "I heard about your situation in town this morning." Mr. Crawford was discussing it rather loudly at the general store. Heat rushed to Olivia's cheeks, so her misfortune was now the talk of Red Bluff. She lifted her chin, determined not to show her humiliation. "I wanted to offer my help," he continued. "I have a line shack on the north edge of my property. It's small but solid, and it's yours if you need it, just until you figure things out." His eyes briefly dropped to her belly before returning to her face. Olivia was speechless. She barely knew this man, and here he was offering shelter when she needed it most. Pride urged her to decline, but practicality won out. "That's very kind, Mr. Lawson, but I couldn't possibly—" "Please," he interrupted. "Winter's coming, and no one should be without shelter, especially in your condition. The shack isn't being used, and it would ease my mind to know you had somewhere to go." Olivia studied him carefully. At around 30, Nathan Lawson wasn't like the other ranchers she'd encountered. There was no condescension in his offer, no hint of expecting something in return. "Why would you help a stranger this way?" she asked quietly. A shadow passed across his face. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be alone when the world turns cold. Do you have a way to transport your belongings?" Olivia shook her head. "I was planning to ask Mr. Peterson if I could use his wagon, but he's away until tomorrow, by which time she'd be evicted." "I'll bring my wagon at first light," Nathan said, settling his hat back on his head. "The shack isn't much, but it'll keep you dry and warm for now." After he left, Olivia sat on her trunk, conflicted. Accepting charity wasn't easy, but the alternative was unthinkable. She'd take the Cowboy's offer temporarily, until she could find work and a more permanent situation. True to his word, Nathan appeared the next morning with a wagon. He worked efficiently, loading her trunks and the few pieces of smaller furniture she couldn't bear to part with: James's rocking chair, a small table, the quilt her mother had made for her wedding. Crawford arrived just as they were finishing, looking surprised to find Olivia already preparing to leave. "I see you found arrangements, Mrs. Whitaker," he said stiffly. "Yes, Mr. Crawford." "I'll be off your property within the hour," Olivia replied, taking satisfaction in his discomfort under Nathan's steady gaze. The journey to the Lawson ranch took most of the morning. As they traveled, Olivia learned that Nathan had inherited the ranch 5 years earlier after his father's death. "Been running it alone since then," he explained, hands steady on the reins. "Got about 30 hands working for me depending on the season." "And your family?" Olivia asked. "None to speak of. My mother passed when I was young, no siblings, no wife." He delivered these facts matter-of-factly, without self-pity. The line shack appeared on the horizon, a simple one-room cabin nestled against a stand of pines. As they drew closer, Olivia's heart sank a little. The building was indeed solid but rough, with a single window and a crooked chimney. Nathan must have noticed her expression. "It's not much," he acknowledged. "The boys use it during roundup when they're working this section of the range." "It's shelter, Mr. Lawson, and I'm grateful," Olivia said, meaning it despite her reservations. They unloaded her belongings, and Nathan showed her how to work the small iron stove. "I'll have one of the hands bring firewood and supplies later today," he promised. As he prepared to leave, Olivia touched his arm. "Thank you, truly." He nodded, seeming embarrassed by her gratitude. "If you need anything, the main house is about 3 miles east. Follow the creek." Alone in the small cabin, Olivia surveyed her new temporary home. The interior was sparse: a narrow bed against one wall, a rough-hewn table, 2 chairs, and the iron stove. The floor was packed dirt, and the walls had gaps where the wind whistled through. It would be a cold, lonely winter. Over the next week, Olivia did her best to make the shack livable. She stuffed the wall gaps with rags, swept the dirt floor until it was smooth, and arranged her few possessions to create some semblance of home. Nathan sent supplies regularly: firewood, food staples, even an old braided rug one of his hands had no use for. On the 8th day, as snow began to fall, Nathan himself appeared with more supplies. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, surveying her improvements with evident surprise. "You've made it look habitable," he said. Olivia smiled. "A few feminine touches go a long way." He hesitated before speaking again. "Mrs. Whitaker, I've been thinking. This place isn't fit for winter, especially for your condition. The roof leaks, the walls are thin, and that stove smokes something fierce when the wind blows from the north." Olivia's stomach tightened. Was he rescinding his offer? "I've been looking for work in town. As soon as I save enough." "That's not what I meant," he interrupted. "I want to build you a proper cabin. There's a good spot near the creek, sheltered by cottonwoods, better drainage, better protection from the wind." Olivia stared at him, dumbfounded. "Build me a cabin, Mr. Lawson, that's too much. I couldn't possibly accept. I've got the lumber," he pressed on. "Was saving it for a new bunkhouse, but that can wait till spring. With help from my hands, we could have the basic structure up before the heavy snows." "Why would you do this?" Olivia asked, genuinely perplexed by his generosity. Nathan looked away, his jaw working as if chewing over his words carefully. "Your husband was a good man. Everyone in the territory respected James Whitaker. He'd want someone looking after his wife and child. The mention of James brought tears to Olivia's eyes. "You knew him." "Not well," Nathan admitted, "but well enough to know he'd do the same if our situations were reversed." Olivia considered his offer. Pride urged her to refuse, but common sense whispered that this shack might well become her grave once winter truly arrived. For her baby's sake, she had to accept. "Thank you," she said finally, "but I insist on paying rent once I find work." Nathan nodded, seeming relieved. "Fair enough. We'll start tomorrow if the weather holds." True to his word, Nathan arrived the next morning with 3 of his ranch hands and a wagon loaded with timber. They marked out the foundation near the creek, a spot that caught the morning sun but was protected from the harsh afternoon winds by a stand of cottonwoods. Over the next 2 weeks, Olivia watched in amazement as the cabin took shape. Nathan worked alongside his men, his hands strong and capable as they raised the walls. Unlike the crude line shack, this cabin was being built with care, proper windows with glass panes, a stone fireplace instead of a temperamental iron stove, and a plank floor that wouldn't turn to mud with each rainfall. Olivia did what she could to help, preparing meals for the workers and gathering stones for the fireplace foundation. One afternoon, as she brought coffee to the men, she found Nathan alone, carefully fitting a window frame. "You're quite skilled," she observed, handing him the steaming cup. "My father believed a man should know how to build what he needs with his own hands," Nathan replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Said it was the difference between surviving and thriving out here." "Wise man." "Stubborn man," Nathan corrected with a small smile, "but yes, wise in his way." He took a sip of coffee, then added, "This looks like my mother's recipe. Strong enough to stand a spoon in it. That's the only way James would drink it." Nathan nodded, a hint of melancholy in his expression. "My father, too." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the creek flow past. Olivia found herself studying Nathan's profile, the straight nose, the firm jaw covered in stubble, the lines at the corners of his eyes that spoke of squinting into the sun and perhaps of laughter in younger days. "What will you do after the baby comes?" he asked suddenly. The question caught Olivia off guard. She had been so focused on immediate survival that she'd avoided thinking too far ahead. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Find work, I suppose. Mrs. Holloway at the general store mentioned she might need help come spring." Nathan frowned. "That's hard work for a woman with a newborn." "I'm not afraid of hard work, Mr. Lawson." "Nathan," he corrected. "If I'm building you a house, you might as well use my given name." "Nathan," Olivia repeated, finding she liked the feel of it on her tongue. "And I'm Olivia." By early November, as the first heavy snow blanketed the valley, the cabin was nearly complete. It was small but solidly built, with 2 rooms, a main living area with the stone fireplace, and a smaller bedroom. Nathan had even constructed a proper bed frame and a cradle, though he seemed embarrassed when Olivia discovered him putting the finishing touches on the latter. "It's beautiful," she said, running her hand along the smooth wood of the cradle. "It's just something to keep the little one off the cold floor," he mumbled, but she could see he was pleased by her reaction. The day came to move Olivia's belongings from the line shack to the new cabin. The temperature had dropped dramatically overnight, and the wind carried the promise of more snow. Nathan insisted on making 2 trips to ensure everything was moved before the weather worsened. As they arranged her few possessions in the new space, Olivia was overcome with emotion. This small cabin represented more than shelter. It was a new beginning, a place where her child would be born and take its first breaths. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick. Nathan, busy building a fire in the new fireplace, didn't look up. "No need for thanks. Just take care of yourself and that baby." That night, alone in her new home, Olivia lay awake listening to the wind. The cabin was snug and warm, the fireplace casting a golden glow across the plank floor. She thought of Nathan, of his quiet strength and unexpected kindness. She had noticed how careful he was not to touch her, how he maintained a respectful distance even as they worked side by side. Unlike some men who viewed a widow, especially one with child, as vulnerable prey, Nathan treated her with dignity. As November gave way to December, Nathan visited regularly, bringing supplies and checking that the cabin was holding up against the winter storms. Sometimes he stayed for coffee, occasionally for a meal. Slowly, their conversations deepened beyond weather and ranch business. Olivia learned that Nathan had returned from fighting in the war, only to find his fiancée had married another, when reports falsely listed him among the dead. The betrayal had left him wary of relationships, dedicating himself instead to building his ranch into one of the most successful in the territory. "Doesn't it get lonely?" Olivia asked one evening as they sat by the fire after supper. Nathan considered the question. "I suppose I got used to it. The ranch keeps me busy and the men provide company of sorts." "But it's not the same as family," Olivia said softly. He looked at her then, really looked at her, his blue eyes reflecting the firelight. "No, it's not." The baby chose that moment to kick vigorously, and Olivia gasped, pressing a hand to her side. Without thinking, she reached for Nathan's hand and placed it where the baby was moving. "Good strong kick," he said, his voice low. His hand remained warm against her belly for a moment before he withdrew it, clearing his throat. An awkward silence fell between them. Olivia felt her cheeks flush, suddenly aware of how forward she had been. Nathan stood abruptly. "It's getting late. I should head back before the snow gets any deeper." After he left, Olivia berated herself for the impulsive gesture. Nathan had been nothing but kind and respectful, and she had made him uncomfortable. She resolved to be more mindful of boundaries. But the following day, Nathan appeared with a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing it to her without ceremony. Inside was a beautiful shawl of soft wool, dyed a deep blue. "My mother's," he explained. "Been packed away since she died. Thought it might keep you warm these cold nights." Olivia was touched by the personal gift. "Are you sure? This is a family heirloom." "It's doing no good in a trunk," Nathan replied. "She would have wanted it used." As Christmas approached, the snow grew deeper, and Nathan's visits became less frequent as ranch responsibilities kept him busy. Olivia found herself watching for him, disappointment settling in her chest on days when he didn't appear. On Christmas Eve, Olivia sat alone by the fire, wearing Nathan's mother's shawl and trying not to feel sorry for herself. Last Christmas, she and James had celebrated with friends in town, exchanging modest gifts and enjoying a community feast. Now, here she was, miles from town, her only company the child growing within her. A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. Opening it, she found Nathan, snow dusting his hat and shoulders, a small pine tree tucked under one arm and a basket in the other. "Thought you might want a bit of Christmas," he said, looking almost shy. Together they set up the small tree in the corner of the room, decorating it with pine cones and bits of colored ribbon Nathan had brought. The basket contained a Christmas feast: roasted chicken, potatoes, cornbread, and even a small cake. "Cooked by Mrs. Flores, my housekeeper," Nathan admitted. "If I'd done it, we'd be eating charred biscuits." They ate by firelight, talking easily about Christmases past. Olivia told him about holiday traditions in her family back east, and Nathan shared rare stories of celebrations with his parents before his mother's death. "I have something for you," Olivia said when they had finished eating. She retrieved a small package from the bedroom, a woolen scarf she had knitted during the long evenings alone. "When did you have time to make this?" Nathan asked, running his fingers over the careful stitches. "The nights are long, and the baby doesn't let me sleep much," she replied with a smile. "I have something for you too," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He handed her a small wooden box. Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. "It's beautiful," Olivia whispered. "Open it," Nathan urged. Inside was a tiny, perfectly rendered drawing of her cabin, their cabin nestled against the cottonwoods. "How did you?" "Doc Wilson's wife does miniatures. I had her come out and sketch it last week when you were visiting Mrs. Peterson in town." Olivia was speechless. The thoughtfulness of the gift overwhelmed her. Without thinking, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Nathan's eyes met hers, and something passed between them, an understanding, a possibility. For a moment, Olivia thought he might kiss her properly, but instead he stood up. "I should get back. The men will wonder where I've gone." At the door, he hesitated. "Would you? Would it be all right if I came for dinner tomorrow, Christmas dinner?" "I would like that very much," Olivia replied. That night, after Nathan had gone, Olivia touched her fingers to the locket around her neck. She found herself thinking not of James, but of Nathan, his quiet strength, his unexpected tenderness, the way his rare smile transformed his serious face. Was it disloyal to James to feel this way? He had been gone only 6 months, and here she was, her heart stirring for another man. Yet somehow, Olivia felt James would understand. He had always told her life was for living, not for regrets. Christmas Day dawned clear and cold, sunlight sparkling on the snow. Olivia spent the morning preparing for Nathan's visit, using the last of her precious store of sugar to bake cookies. She washed her hair and pinned it carefully, then put on her best dress, a dark green wool that still accommodated her growing belly. By late afternoon, when Nathan had not appeared, Olivia began to worry. It wasn't like him to break a promise without sending word. The sun was setting, painting the snow golden when she heard hoofbeats approaching. It wasn't Nathan, but one of his ranch hands, a young man named Sam. "Miss Olivia," he said breathlessly after dismounting, "Mr. Lawson sent me to fetch you. There's been an accident." Olivia's heart clenched. "Is he hurt?" "Yes, madam. Took a bad fall when his horse spooked at a rattler. Doc Wilson's with him now at the main house, but Mr. Lawson's asking for you." Without hesitation, Olivia gathered her shawl and medical supplies. Sam helped her onto his horse, and they set off through the snow toward the main ranch house. The Lawson ranch house was larger than Olivia had expected, a substantial 2-story building with a wide porch wrapping around 3 sides. Several hands were gathered on the porch, touching their hats respectfully as Sam helped Olivia dismount. Inside, Mrs. Flores, a sturdy Mexican woman with graying hair, led Olivia upstairs to Nathan's room. Doc Wilson was just leaving, his face grave. "Broken leg and a couple of ribs," he informed Olivia. "He'll heal, but he's in for a rough few weeks. I've given him laudanum for the pain, but he refused to take it until he saw you." Nathan was propped up in a large bed, his face pale with pain. His right leg was splinted and bandaged, and he winced with each breath. "You shouldn't have come," he said when he saw her. "The trail's dangerous in this weather." Olivia approached the bed, setting down her supplies. "As if I wouldn't come when you needed me." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Stubborn woman," says the man who refused medicine until I arrived. She poured water from a pitcher into a basin and wrung out a cloth. Gently, she wiped the sweat from his brow. "Now take your medicine and rest." To her surprise, he obeyed, swallowing the laudanum without protest. As the drug took effect, his features relaxed. "Stay," he murmured, his eyes heavy. Please." Olivia settled into a chair beside his bed. "I'm not going anywhere." For the next week, Olivia remained at the ranch house, helping Mrs. Flores tend to Nathan. His injuries were severe enough that he couldn't be left alone for long, and with many of the hands away visiting family for the holidays, extra help was needed. Olivia moved into a guest room down the hall from Nathan's, but she spent most of her days at his bedside. As he began to recover, their conversations deepened. Free from the distractions of work, Nathan spoke more openly than ever before. "I never thought I'd have someone caring for me like this again," he admitted one afternoon as Olivia changed his bandages. "Not since my mother died." "Everyone needs someone," Olivia replied, her fingers gentle on his skin. Nathan caught her hand. "Olivia, when I'm better. There are things I want to say to you. Things I should have said before now." Her heart quickened, but before she could respond, Mrs. Flores appeared with fresh linens, and the moment passed. By mid-January, Nathan was able to move around with crutches, though the effort clearly pained him. One evening, as heavy snow fell outside, they sat in the ranch house parlor before a blazing fire. Mrs. Flores had retired for the night, leaving them alone. "How are you feeling?" Olivia asked, noticing Nathan shift uncomfortably in his chair. "Like I've been trampled by a herd of buffalo," he admitted with a wry smile. "Doc Wilson says I'm lucky the breaks are healing clean." "You need to rest more," Olivia scolded gently. "You're pushing yourself too hard. The ranch won't run itself." He gazed into the fire for a long moment before speaking again. "I've been thinking, Olivia. When the baby comes, you shouldn't be alone at the cabin. It's too isolated if something goes wrong." Olivia had been having similar concerns as her due date approached. "I've thought of that too," she confessed. "Mrs. Peterson has offered to let me stay with her in town when the time gets close." Nathan frowned. "That's a long journey in your condition, especially in winter. I have another suggestion." He hesitated, then continued, "Stay here. The ranch house has plenty of room, and Mrs. Flores is experienced with childbirth. She delivered all 5 of her grandchildren." "Nathan, I couldn't impose." "It's not an imposition," he interrupted. "It's what I want, what I've wanted for some time now." He met her eyes directly. "I care for you, Olivia, more than I thought possible to care for anyone again." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "Nathan, you don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "I know it's too soon after James. I know you're still grieving, but I wanted you to know my feelings." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "It's not too soon," she whispered. "I've felt it too, though I've been afraid to admit it, even to myself." Nathan moved from his chair to kneel awkwardly before her, grimacing at the pain but determined. He took her hands in his. "I'm not asking for promises right now. Just stay until the baby comes. Let me look after you both." Olivia nodded, too emotional to speak. That night, alone in her room, Olivia placed a hand on her belly, feeling the strong movements of her child. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered. "Should we trust this man with our hearts?" The baby kicked vigorously, as if in answer. January gave way to February, and Olivia settled into life at the ranch house. Nathan's injuries continued to heal, and he was soon able to resume light duties around the ranch. Olivia found herself drawn to watching him work, admiring his patience with the younger hands and his quiet authority. One cold afternoon, Nathan found her in the kitchen, struggling to reach a jar on a high shelf. Without a word, he reached over her to retrieve it, his chest warm against her back. When she turned to thank him, they were standing so close she could feel his breath on her face. "Olivia," he murmured, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. His lips met hers gently at first, then with growing passion as she responded. It was nothing like James's kisses, not better or worse, just different. Where James had been playful and exuberant, Nathan was steady and intense, his control evident even in this moment of abandon. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since Christmas," he admitted. Olivia smiled, her heart full. "What took you so long, Cowboy?" February turned bitterly cold with blizzards sweeping across the territory. Olivia was grateful to be in the solid ranch house rather than her small cabin, though she missed its coziness at times. Her due date was approaching, and though she tried to hide it, she was growing increasingly anxious about the birth. Nathan noticed, of course. One evening after dinner, he presented her with a small box. Inside was a silver baby rattle. "It was mine," he explained. "My father kept it all these years." Olivia was touched by the gesture. "Nathan, are you sure about all this? Taking on another man's wife, another man's child?" "I'm not taking on anything," he replied firmly. "I'm choosing to love a remarkable woman who happens to be carrying a child I will cherish because it's a part of you." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "I love you," she whispered, saying the words aloud for the first time. Nathan's face transformed with joy. "And I love you, Olivia Whitaker." He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "I know this isn't the conventional way of things, but then again, nothing about our story has been conventional. Will you marry me? Not out of necessity or convenience, but because we've found something rare together." "Yes," Olivia answered without hesitation. "Yes, I'll marry you." They were wed 2 days later in the ranch house parlor, with Doc Wilson officiating and the ranch hands and Mrs. Flores as witnesses. Nathan had sent for Reverend Collins from Red Bluff, but the ongoing blizzard made travel impossible, and Olivia didn't want to wait. Doc Wilson, as Justice of the Peace, was authorized to perform the ceremony. Olivia wore a simple blue dress with Nathan's mother's shawl. Nathan, still moving carefully due to his healing ribs, wore his best suit. They spoke their vows before the fireplace, promising to love and cherish each other through all the seasons to come. That night, despite his injuries and her advanced pregnancy, they consummated their marriage with tender passion. Nathan treated her body with reverence, mindful of her condition yet determined to express his love physically as well as emotionally. "I never thought I'd find this again," he whispered as they lay together afterward, his hand resting protectively over her belly. "A family of my own." 2 weeks after their wedding, in the pre-dawn hours of a cold March morning, Olivia went into labor. Nathan sent a hand for Doc Wilson, but the physician was attending another birth across the valley. Mrs. Flores took charge, her capable hands and calm demeanor reassuring both Olivia and Nathan. After 12 hours of labor, Olivia delivered a healthy baby boy. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfection, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that announced his arrival to the entire household. "James," Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face as Mrs. Flores placed the swaddled infant in her arms. "James Nathan Whitaker." Nathan, who had remained by her side throughout the ordeal, gazed down at the infant with wonder. "He's beautiful, Olivia. Perfect." "Would you like to hold your son?" Olivia asked softly. Nathan hesitated, then carefully took the baby, cradling him as if he were made of spun glass. "Hello, James," he murmured. "I'm not your father by blood, but I promise to love you as my own for all my days." In that moment, watching Nathan with her son, Olivia felt a sense of completion she had never expected to find again after James's death. She had loved her first husband deeply, and part of her would always mourn his loss. But life had given her a second chance at happiness, a new beginning with a man whose quiet strength and generosity had rebuilt not just her home, but her heart. Spring came slowly to Red Bluff that year. April brought warming days but still cold nights, and the creek behind their cabin swelled with snowmelt from the mountains. Nathan had insisted that they use the cabin he had built for Olivia once the weather improved, saying the main house was too busy with ranch hands coming and going for a new mother and infant. Besides, he'd added with a smile, I built that cabin with my own hands for you. Seems right we should live in it, at least until we add to our family and need more space. Life settled into a pleasant routine. Nathan would rise early to see to ranch business, returning midday to spend time with Olivia and the baby. Olivia tended a small garden, began keeping chickens, and created a warm, loving home. Little James thrived under their care, growing stronger each day. One evening in late May, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Nathan brought up something that had clearly been on his mind. I've been thinking about James's name, he said carefully. Olivia tensed slightly. What about it? Not the baby, Nathan clarified quickly. Your first husband. I was wondering if you'd consider letting me give the baby my name legally. Not to replace his father's memory, but to make us officially a family in the eyes of the law. Olivia considered the request. You want to adopt him? Nathan nodded. Only if you're comfortable with it. He'll always know about James, who he was, how brave he was. But I want him to grow up knowing he has a father who chose him, who wanted to be his father even though blood didn't demand it. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. James Nathan Lawson, she said softly. It has a fine sound to it. So that's a yes, Nathan asked, his voice hopeful. Yes, Olivia confirmed, but we'll always honor his birth father's memory. Nathan pulled her close. I wouldn't have it any other way. Summer arrived in full glory, painting the valley with wildflowers and filling the days with warmth. Baby James grew stronger, learning to smile and laugh, his dark eyes taking in the world with curiosity. Nathan proved to be a natural father, patient and loving, often carrying the baby in a sling across his chest as he worked around the property. In July, Nathan came home with news that shocked Olivia. I saw Benjamin Crawford in town today, he said over supper. He told me the buyer of your old property has abandoned it, the cabin's falling to ruin. Olivia felt a strange twist of emotion. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Nathan asked, studying her face. I thought you might have some attachment to the place, given your history there with James. I did love that little cabin once, Olivia admitted, but so much has changed. This is my home now, the home you built with your own hands. She reached across the table to take his hand. The home we're making together. Nathan's expression softened. I was thinking we might buy it back, not to live in but to keep in the family, for James when he's grown, or for our other children someday. Olivia's heart skipped at the mention of more children. Do you want more children? With you? Nathan smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. As many as you're willing to give me. As it happened, they didn't have to wait long. By September, Olivia was fairly certain she was expecting again. Doc Wilson confirmed it during his next visit to the ranch. Due late spring, I'd say, the physician announced. You're a healthy young woman, Olivia. No reason this pregnancy shouldn't go as smoothly as the last. Nathan was overjoyed at the news. That night, as they lay in bed, he placed his hand reverently on Olivia's still flat stomach. Another miracle, he whispered. Do you know how rich my life has become because of you? Olivia covered his hand with her own. And mine because of you. When I was evicted last year, I thought my life was over. I never imagined it was just beginning. The following April, as wildflowers carpeted the valley once more, Olivia gave birth to twin girls. Ella Rose and Emma Grace arrived within minutes of each other, both with Nathan's blue eyes and Olivia's auburn hair. James, now 13 months old and toddling everywhere, regarded his new sisters with solemn curiosity. Standing at the bedroom window with a daughter in each arm, Nathan looked out over the land he'd worked so hard to build. 5 years ago, I thought I'd live and die alone on this ranch, he said softly. Now look at us, a family of 5. Olivia joined him, slipping an arm around his waist. And it all began with a cabin you built with your own hands. No, Nathan corrected, kissing her temple. It began with your courage in the face of adversity. All I did was recognize a woman worth building a life around. By the time James was 5 and the twins were 4, the cabin Nathan had built for Olivia was becoming crowded, especially with 2-year-old Daniel Nathan running underfoot. Nathan had already begun construction on a larger family home halfway between the cabin and the main ranch house, a sprawling single-story home with plenty of room for their growing family and space for Olivia to teach the children their letters and numbers. As autumn painted the cottonwoods gold in 1882, Olivia sat on the porch of their original cabin, watching Nathan play with the children in the yard. James, so like his birth father in his fearlessness yet with Nathan's thoughtful nature, was teaching the twins how to lasso a fence post. Daniel toddled after them, determined to keep up. Olivia's hand rested on her belly, where their 5th child was just beginning to make its presence known. They had purchased her old property as Nathan had suggested, and James would inherit it someday along with a portion of the Lawson ranch. The twins would share another section, and Daniel and this new baby would have their portions as well. Nathan looked up, catching her eye across the yard. The love in his gaze still made her heart race after all these years. He excused himself from the children's game and came to sit beside her on the porch steps. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said, taking her hand. "I was just thinking about how life changes in ways we never expect," Olivia replied. 6 years ago, I was a pregnant widow being evicted from my home, with nowhere to turn. And now I'm the wife of the finest man in Montana Territory, mother to 4 soon-to-be 5 beautiful children, mistress of a successful ranch, and happier than I ever dreamed possible. Nathan squeezed her hand. "Any regrets?" Olivia considered the question seriously. "I'll always miss James," she said honestly. "He was my first love and he gave me our son, but Nathan, what we've built together." She gestured to the cabin, the children, the life they'd created. "This is beyond anything I could have hoped for. You didn't just build me a house, you helped me build a future when I thought mine was gone." Nathan leaned over to kiss her softly. "And you, Olivia Lawson, gave me a family when I'd resigned myself to solitude. I'd say we built something remarkable together." As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Olivia leaned against her husband's shoulder, content in the knowledge that sometimes life's harshest blows can lead to its greatest blessings. From the ashes of tragedy, they had forged a love strong enough to weather any storm the frontier might bring, a love built by hand, log by log and day by day, as solid and enduring as the cabin where it began.